back in the bag again. Whoa, yeah.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Splash City Basketball Podcast. It is Thursday, March 12th. Busy week. We have girls state basketball tournament. The last pod I did, we talked to Cassidy Hedesheimer from the Star Tribune, talking about players to watch, teams to watch, matchups we're excited for. So check that one out. And make sure you follow and subscribe to YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Blue Sky, and wherever you get your podcasts, of course. Got an in-person event coming up for March Madness soon, so I want to make sure you all know about that. We'll be broadcasting live from Back Channel Brewing in Spring Park, Minnesota during the March Madness event. I'm still dialing in Thursday or Friday, but that's where we'll be one of those days, so you won't want to miss that. So make sure you stay tuned, follow on social so you know what all the updates and the times and things like that. So really excited for that event. Today's episode, we're going to talk to some members of a youth basketball association. The youth season for the winter is kind of wrapping up here for most teams. And I think there's a lot of elements to running an association. There's a lot of work, volunteer time, effort, resources put into that just to make a great experience for young people to enjoy the game of basketball. And so I brought a couple of my local association members on to get their thoughts and feedback, things that they hear when they're out and about at tournaments and talking to other folks at other associations. So hopefully that's really insightful and helpful for a lot of you out there, especially parents of youth players, because there is a lot of time and resources devoted to that. And so I think it's important that we all remember the work and the people behind that. And if you're not volunteering today, maybe that'll motivate you to do so. Um, but first, in the initial segment, I want to talk briefly about the Wolves and Gophers. Both suffer disappointing losses. Timberwolves really never had a chance. They just didn't. There was a late push in the third quarter. Thought maybe they'd get back into it, but Kawhi Leonard was just too much last night. Defense was non-existent for the Timberwolves. And Gophers just felt like, maybe their six-man rotation kind of caught up to them. Didn't quite have the juice last night, and Rutgers, to their credit, played better. So we'll talk briefly about that before we talk youth basketball associations. And with that, let's get into it. All right, this first segment, I want to devote a few minutes to the Timberwolves losing their second game of this 4-game road trip out west to the LA Clippers. And Kawhi comes out and he's hot early and he scores 45. There's not much really you could do. We've seen Chris Finch attack other stars with double teams and try to get the ball out of their hands a little bit, but Kawhi was just super efficient. I know he got a couple on kickouts off of rebounds. He got a couple transition shots. He was going to the body of Rudy, and Rudy was unable to deter that shot. Kawhi's arm's length playing a factor there, but took 20 shots, scored 45 points, 9 of 10 at the line. He was 6 of 9 from three. Would have been nice to see some tactic there to slow him down. The Wolves had the lead down to, I think it was about 9 or 10 going into the fourth. And there was moments where they could have cut it closer. They just couldn't really make any headway. Defensively, they just couldn't slow the Clippers down. It felt like anytime they got a couple of stops in a row, there was bad offensive possessions. And that goes back to what I said the other day on the podcast about moving the ball. And yeah, Anthony Edwards scores 36 points, and that's great. But Jaden, Rudy, Dante all took 6 shots or fewer. Naz Reid had a nice game, so that was helpful to see him put the ball in the basket. And Bones played a solid game, so it wasn't really the bench guys so much as it was. And even offensively, I don't even know if there's that much to complain about outside of Julius's 3 for 10. But that turnover stretch in the beginning of the game was just killer. They got behind early, and it kind of just, again, I mentioned this the other day, but to me, the tone setting of this team is where I worry. Like, there is just no, um, you know, hey, we had a bad game in the Lakers. Let's come out and lock in, take care of the ball, get back to who we are on the defensive end. And there's just very little pushback on any of that. So things could just kind of, they won the second quarter, they lost the third by 2. So the middle 2 quarters are competitive, but when you come out and the tone is set that we're giving up 38 points and we're going to turn the ball over, they had 21 turnovers, and the Clippers aren't a great team, but they're playing team. They're playing well lately. They've been playing well for a while now after a really, really slow start. But, Jaden's of minus 40, Rudy's a minus 38. And those are your two defensive stalwarts. That can't happen. Really disappointing again. Now, I said if they can go 2-2 on this road trip, they get the Warriors, and they get the Warriors and the Thunder. You win those two, and you go 2-2 on this road trip. That might feel good, especially if the last game is Oklahoma City. Now that's a noon game, and we know the Wolves have kind of struggled in these afternoon games, so that one is one to watch. You go 1-3 in these games, then you almost have to win that next group with Phoenix, Utah, Portland. You have to win those three. You'd be 4-3 in that 7-game span. So would love to see the Wolves come out Friday at Golden State with a little more movement offensively, get other guys involved, get Dante going, get Jaden some easy shots, get some confidence, find a way to get Julius going. I mean, he's just kind of been scuffling, whether it's, his ISO or even his catch and shoot threes. That what last year was really good down the stretch, and he's kind of struggled shooting the three ball the last few games. And so they got to find some rhythm early and set the tone, because whatever they're doing right now just ain't working. Julius took 1 3 the other night. He was 0 for 1, and just got to find a rhythm. Got to find a rhythm for these other guys. A lot of times, that defense and offense is tied together. Um, and so I think that's really key against the Warriors, and that's a team that hopefully we can find a little more rhythm there. Kind of a goofy matchup, but we'll see. We'll see how that goes. The other game, briefly want to touch on, Gophers men's basketball team loses their Big Ten tournament opener. Disappointing just in the fact that they were the top, the favorite. They were the 11th seed playing a 14. Now they have blown out Rutgers. I was at that game at Williams Arena a couple weeks ago. And they that game shot really well. This game, they didn't shoot quite as well. I think, they did the best they could. But again, to me, it's a turnover situation where they second half had the game was close and they turned it over a few times in a row. I think there was like 4 straight possessions, and you lose by 5, and that's the difference in the ball game. So I was telling my son, their margin for error is just so small when you're playing those same 6 guys with limited with limited athleticism, right? Like, Bobby Durkin can basically do one thing. He does it really well. But if Rutgers changes anything and you got to adapt, they don't have a lot of guys that can do that. Grayson Grove plays super hard. He's getting a lot better at finishing. He's a great passer. Um, but for struggles at the free throw line. So easy baskets for your inside guys are hard to find. They don't have any rim protection, so they have to execute their zone perfectly to avoid certain passes into the high post or to the short corner. Because as you saw last night, there was a lot of easy dunks for Abole in the middle, and so those were the small things that changed from the last game against Rutgers. Again, you're 3 starters down. Not many teams are going to survive that. I think winning 8 games in the Big Ten is a good thing for Minnesota. But the difference last night was the turnovers. Rutgers has 10, Gophers have 15. That's at least could be a 10-point difference there. And when you lose by 5, that kills you. So more on them probably this weekend. Kind of do a recap. We'll see if they get to any postseason tournaments. I don't know that that's going to be possible, but we'll see. But we'll talk more about that later. Coming up next, let's talk some youth basketball with Kristi and Sara. Thousands of kids and teams across Minnesota are wrapping up their grade state tournament. My son's team just wrapped up our weekend. Some 7th and 8th graders are coming up this weekend. So the winter season's almost at an end. But I know for a lot of associations and the board members on those associations, it never really stops. So today I wanted to look at the work that goes into putting together a youth basketball organization. I know there's a lot of parents, players, coaches, even myself as a coach. I don't know everything that the association does. So joining me today are 2 board members from the local association in my community, the West Tonka Youth Basketball Association. Kristi Hicks, Sara Schwartz happen to be coaches as well. So I'm sure you have, lots of free time in the winter, but thank you both for joining.
Thanks. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having us. Happy to be here.
So just want to start off just in general. What do you guys kind of think of when you think of the goal or the mission of the association?
Do you want to go first?
Yeah. I think really we're looking to provide awesome opportunities for kids that are curious about the sport of basketball, that are looking to develop as players, and really also come around and come next to coaches as well, to make sure that we're fostering a environment where it's a growth mindset environment, so that kids are being introduced to sports, or this particular sport, with a positive mindset associated with it. So I think it's not just about the fundamentals, but there's the intentional around the psychology around it too, so that we're creating a healthy environment for kids to play in.
And to make sure all of them have the opportunity to play and to be part of something bigger than they are. We think you can learn a lot from being on a team.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the things that our board really tries to do is give a spot for every kid to be on a team throughout 3rd through 8th grade. So every kid's important to us, and we want them to all walk away, their families to walk away having had a good experience, or a positive experience at least.
Mm-hmm.
For sure. And you guys have been on the board for 5 years. So has that changed? Like, have you had to reevaluate over time from what you thought initially when you first joined the board, and versus today, now that you've kind of seen it, through the 5 years or so that your sons have been playing?
Yeah, I think we were both at our first board meeting when her son was in 2nd and my son was in 3rd grade, and really didn't know what to expect at all. And also at that same meeting, we became coaches too. So that was exciting. There.
Yeah.
But I think we would leave, and the people on the board back then were awesome. They did everything, like they knew what they were doing. And as a new person, sometimes you're like, oh, is that really what we should be doing? And then as you've been on the board, you're like, yeah, that really is what we should be doing for all these things that are happening. You just kind of see it and you're like, oh, it makes sense. But right away, when you're part of something new, your brain's always moving, but you have to sometimes give it a little bit of space to figure out like why it's happening before trying to change something. We have text back and forth like, oh, this makes sense now. Like, oh, I get it. So, yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds like a little pitch to people who have big opinions. Join the board and get involved, and then see it all come together, right?
Yes, right. You want ideas for sure, but they all have to work together.
I think like any organization, like business or other sports organizations or whatever communities, your subcultures you're part of, everybody has their own language and way of being. And you might use your internal language when trying to have an external conversation from like a marketing perspective. And I think once you get in and have a little bit of experience, you're like, oh, now this all makes sense,
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Yeah.
So as you guys talk to other, whether it's coaches or people who are part of other associations, I think, one of the things that we were talking about earlier was just like how challenges are not unique to any one group. So when you talk to them, like, are they facing similar things? Are there things that you guys share and say, oh, well, we do it this way. How do you guys run this? Or how do you do tryouts? We do it this way. What are the big topics that people want to talk about?
Tryouts. the information, the cost of how everything, like the cost,
Okay, sure.
a lot of times like gym time and space and how
Mhm.
all of that works. Paid
Yeah.
coaches, not paid coaches,
Yep.
tournament
So
schedule.
let's
Sorry.
talk
Yeah.
about the coaches. No, that's okay. Let's talk about the coaches piece. Like, because we are volunteer based
Mhm.
at our association. What are the pluses, minuses of paid versus volunteer?
We actually do have 2 paid coaches in our
Oh,
association for 8th grade.
Mhm.
So,
okay,
8th and 7th grade used to be run through, like, our school, middle school
sure.
basketball. There's paid coaches a lot of years ago, before we were on the board, many years ago.
Okay,
Um, and then when it switched, I think some 8th grade and 7th grade coaches, again, previous to us, would get paid, and then that just kinda got phased off.
mm,
So in our board, I believe our bylaws, if there's no coaches for 8th grade, you can pay a coach for 8th
okay,
grade. So then we try to find volunteers for everything
Mhm.
else. You would think finding a paid coach would be easy, and it's really not easy. And that's a common theme throughout associations.
Yep.
Like a lot of associations, some have, it's really interesting. Some do like a paid coach for their top team in 7th and 8th grade, and then the other teams are volunteer based. Some do only paid
mm,
coaches for a certain grade. And some parents like that, but they also said sometimes if you have great parents in a program, a paid coach isn't always better.
Mhm.
right.
So there's a lot of opinions. I feel really lucky. The coaches we've had that are paid are
Great.
great.
Yep.
They're awesome with their 8th graders. But yeah, there's not like there's not a right or a wrong. It's hard to find parent coaches sometimes or paid coaches actually. So I don't know.
True.
Yeah, we sit in meetings at all levels and are trying to find like, okay, we don't have coaches for this grade. What's the plan? Who knows people who can we reach out to? Um, and I think also, you think about people that are interested or curious about the work that a board does or are curious about coaching. Oh, well, I haven't played before or I don't know a lot about the game. And I think for anybody who's listening and curious about that, I would just encourage somebody to get involved and ask a lot of questions because you can have from a coaching perspective, you might have played the game, but it's a different skill set to coach. And I think it's a different skill set to particularly coach, like 3rd through 8th grade. It's how are you communicating in short phrases, motivating. I don't want to get into the weeds on that, but from a coaching perspective, I just think there's a lot of different strengths that people can bring to that environment. And it's
Mhm.
not one person doing it by themselves. And then from a board perspective, if you're curious about it or frustrated or excited about the community part of it, I would just encourage someone to get involved because it's a really fun space to
It's
be in. And it's a great group of people that not just care about the sport, but really care about the
Mhm.
players and the families involved too.
Yeah. Yeah, we were talking about the board members in our association, how everyone has a job, right? Like there's no shortage of things to do. So if someone's interested in helping out and maybe they don't know the game well enough, they don't want to coach, there's other skill sets that associations would be looking for, right?
Yes. And also, if you uh, when I say anyone can coach, I don't mean that as a slam against coaches. I think coaches
Mm-mm.
are amazing. Like I love
Oh,
coaching.
yeah.
If you are someone who has a passion for like learning or helping, 3rd and 4th graders, more parents, more coaches, the better. And you might not be a high school or college basketball star, but like having a parent out there able to like put an ice pack on someone's hand or like
Yeah.
make sure they know what circle to stand on. Like that's a good way to just get involved with the younger ones. And sometimes your knowledge can build up where you can keep helping.
Mhm.
I, I, I don't know a lot of associations ever turning away coaches that want to try to
Right.
help.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
highly doubt that, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, there's a saying amongst coaches that it's Jimmys and Joes and not X's and O's. And so if you can get all the kids going the right direction or the same direction, you're winning.
Yes.
You're being successful.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Um, the other thing you talked about was gym space, and I know we have our challenges, I guess, with gym space, but I kind of think that everyone probably does to some degree. There's just more participation, especially in, youth associations. Like we have lots of teams, but like, as soon as you build a new gym in another school district, they probably fill that thing up and have things
Right.
scheduled all the time. So what is that, as you work with other, like this time of year, it's baseball, softball, practicing in the indoors, or could be volleyball, jail volleyball and stuff like that. So how do you kind of work that? I know, Sarah, you do a lot of the scheduling and stuff. So how does that kind of play into playing nice with all the other teams and coaches?
Well, I only schedule the tournaments, so I don't have to do the
Oh,
practices.
okay. Okay.
We have one person that does that, and I don't know, it's a full-time job. So
Mm,
he has to work along with, so we have 20, what do you say, 23
23
teams.
teams.
And then we have like in our district, 7 full-size basketball courts and 3 elementary size ones that as you get older are pretty difficult to practice on. So he
right.
has to, it's what we need and want with JO volleyball. There's like adult basketball, adult volleyball, community ed basketball, all of those things, plus
Our
our
varsity.
varsity basketball
Hmm.
teams, their levels. So he like we get a schedule about what, 7 to 10 days out, which is the best that they can do. Like there's nothing earlier. I know some districts are lucky or associations are lucky they can schedule things like at all the same, but we just don't have that ability here.
Hmm.
Um, but he does a great job, like working hard to ask what practices can be combined with different teams that work well together. Like we've practiced together,
Yep.
who can go early or late and in different spaces like that. But he is always scheduling.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
think I think there are challenges across any size district. I think what's can be unique about a smaller school maybe versus a larger district is you're often competing in the same tournaments, right? So we're not just playing schools that are the same size as ours. So on average, we've 2, maybe 3 practices a week, but oftentimes you're playing against other teams that might be getting gym space 4 times a week,
Hmm.
So that poses some challenges, but I think we talk to even to players about it. What we only have control over so much, right? So you make the most of the time that you have and work hard
Mhm.
within the parameters that you're given. Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. I mean, more isn't always better. I mean, I think all of us would love to practice more and do all that, but like kids are kids too, right? Like,
Yeah.
there's
Right.
some I would say positivity about having a day or two off where they don't have to, go run killers. Uh, Not that anyone would ever make the kids run killers at this time, but
Right.
Well,
Yep.
running whole
um,
punch. Running makes them
no,
better. It's something they
that's true.
love to do.
So,
Says the track
This is a
coach.
track coach. Yes, I know. I know. I know. How about so Sarah, you talked about the tournament scheduling.
Mhm.
What I know there's been some years where we've gone, a little way. We're lucky. We're in the metro. There's lots of tournaments
Mhm.
fairly close by, within an hour or so. But like for instance, this year our team we were really pretty close to home. Probably a lot of tournaments within
Mhm.
20-30 minutes, right, Kristi? Like, um, and then there's been other years where we've gone a little farther. Is it strictly like, I know you're balancing a lot. You're balancing, fees, whether you can get a spot. You don't want to play like 6 weekends in a row when it's third grade, maybe, versus older kids. That's maybe
Right.
a little bit better. So, like, what are all the different factors that you're dealing with when you're talking about tournament scheduling?
Okay. Well, it's gotten easier since it's all been online. Like the first year I had to mail in papers and write checks
Oh
and
my
stuff.
gosh.
It was challenging to me.
Yeah.
But I try to make a schedule, at least for, like, I look at our school district schedule since the majority of our students that are playing are in our school district, and try to like black out when there's 4-day weekends, or I know families want to travel, right? And I don't think youth sports
Sure.
should overtake your life. So do that. Um, we actually start scheduling our tournaments in June, where like as soon as it opens, it's usually around June 4th. And some of the tournaments fill up like that just so fast, which is why like a
Sorry,
couple,
sorry. June for the
yes.
next winter. Okay. Just wanted to be
So
clear that so
yeah,
everybody understands that that's what's
yeah,
going on.
it's in June. So, and you're scheduling it before we know our teams. So I like
Right.
look the record of every team from the year before, like what percent they won in each level to try to determine if it's I mean, it might not be the same players, obviously, but about the same level of team, like where they should play. So then we're guessing on that. And then you schedule tournaments. And our parent feedback has been that they like 1-day tournaments a lot, close tournaments, the right level tournaments, which, I mean, it's A, B, and C. And some B teams play C that are B, and other associations. It's never perfect because you're scheduling, like I said, June. And then you just do the best you can and try to piece it together and hope that if there's a mistake, like we had to cancel a team because some of our kids got brought up to high school, like we can get our refunds back for that. Or if teams are playing at the wrong level because you'd scheduled it so far, and you have to schedule that far in advance if tournaments will work with you. So it's like a big puzzle, but I don't know. So
it's a big puzzle, but I've never met somebody that puts more time and thought into it than
well, we want it to be good for everybody.
Than Sara. And I think you really called out, and I think it's important for curious minds who want to know. There is so much thought that goes into it. I mean, Sara just alluded to it, but like if you really sit with that, it is a giant puzzle. And in some ways it's almost an impossible task because it's really hard to make everybody happy. And then you heard Sara say it's A, B, and C level tournaments. Well, we can speak to, you have grades that have 4 teams in them. I think one time we had 5. So the goal obviously isn't to travel an hour to play your own team, right? To play your a team within your same grade, but sometimes those scenarios are out of our control as well. So there's just a lot to it.
Yeah. Well, kudos, Sara.
Yeah.
Not just because you're on the podcast, but it is crazy. And I do feel like it's for the most part, I don't have any complaints about most of the tournaments we played in. So speaking of tournaments, most associations host one. It's usually like their biggest fundraiser, right, for their association. What are the most common challenges with that? What are the things that people get most worked up about when it comes to hosting a tournament?
Well, for us, I think it is that we only have, we are very lucky and to have 6 great gyms in our space.
So nice. Yep.
Which is awesome. But 6 gyms compared to some other places, it's harder to schedule things because you don't have like 10, right? So we have to decide how many hours and how 6 games per hour and all of this. And then the other thing I think for us is a challenge is trying to make it so we have the right levels for all of our teams to play in it. Like historically, our associations had a BC tournament, which is great. Like we have had a lot of success with that. But then some of our teams are like, we added 3rd grade into travel, or our teams are playing different levels. So trying to get teams to come to that and having the right teams enter. And so like basically what we do is we open it all up at all the levels. And then if 4 teams enter, we'll sometimes add extra teams to that because it's filling up, which means then if not enough teams enter, you've seen sometimes you've had to do like an AB level or a BC level. So just finding the right spot and trying to hopefully have our Whitehawks teams not play each other, or other teams from the same association not play each other, just because they also don't want to be able to do that. It's.
Sara also goes the extra mile, and I'll give an example of this year where she looks at, well, this team is traveling from over an hour away, so I want to make sure that they're not playing the 8 o'clock game because I don't think that would be very fun to have to get home at 10:30 at night. So I'm going to give you another shout out for the level of detail that you put into planning, which is epic. But it kind of shines a light on just the number of puzzle pieces that are happening, right? And that's just the game side of it, right? That's not
the concession stand.
That's not coordinating with the district to make sure that you have the support staff that you need there so that we have access to the building. And then there might be a varsity game the night that you're supposed to be setting up. And there's a specific person designated for concessions, right? Which is a huge part of the raising arm of the tournament outside of the entry fees and communication, parking, and by the way, you're usually not the only event happening at a district that day. So what does parking look like, and signage? And are you directing people to the right spaces? And
awards.
The information table that tell people where the restrooms are
Right.
700 times in one day.
And then like
just,
awards, how many to get.
Yeah.
Or like in scheduling, I mean, I never knew how to schedule until I had to learn how to schedule. And just like people are like, well, why do I have so much space in a game? I'm like, well, it's because the 3-team pool, you can't play every other hour because there's not enough. It's just funny how it all works out where once you think about it, you're like, oh, it makes sense. But if you've never actually had to like put it together, I would never have known that.
Yeah.
So
Right.
finding
Yeah.
referee, we are lucky. There's like a referee guy that someone emails and he sets up referees, which is really nice. He has like a system for it,
Sure.
which is awesome. Finding people to work the tables. I mean, now it's parent volunteers, which is good.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
What's the like craziest request for like whether it was our tournament or going somewhere else? Have you ever had like somebody request
No,
we want
we've
to play at a certain time or we need to be out of there by noon, so can you get us in the morning?
we haven't had any requests. We've had like what we call like we play tournament bingo. Like, did this funny thing happen this year? Like,
Oh,
Yeah.
like
all right.
it's
Well, what do you got there? What's that? What's that?
like 2 years ago. I was like, we have ants on court 3, ants on court 4.
Yeah.
So then this year it was like, are there ants on courts 4? Is there bingo? Like, did the referee throw up again? Did a player throw up? Like, just
The family day for their grandchild's game. Like, no, I promise the boys play the next day. Like that. There hasn't been, I feel really lucky. We've had like some coaches that are like, I coach 2 teams, not in our association, but they coach like a high school team. And then they play it in the morning so they can get to their other game, which if I can do that, like obviously I want to try to honor that. Like our coaches, we have several that coach multiple teams. So then I would try to make the schedule so they were like playing every other rather than all at the same time. But we're pretty lucky. I mean,
first we're trying to get people to register for the tournament. Then we're trying to accommodate us, like our own coaches that are coaching their 3rd grade girl and their 6th grade boy. And there's a lot of moving pieces. And I say we, but that part is hard.
No, it's other. And I mean, and also I think the person who's like the most doesn't get any praise as the concession stand person. They're doing trips to Costco probably in October. Like getting all the things. The spreadsheet and figuring out the price points. And I mean, like, because we all know cranky kids, hungry kids are not fun.
Right.
And parents don't want to spend $50 at a concession stand. So trying to balance all of it. So shout out to the concession stand people. They're good.
Yeah. Right. Well, there's a lot there. So I hope anybody who's listening will, thank their association members. I want to finish with one topic you brought up early. I'm saving it to the end. Tryouts. What are the philosophies? I know ours, but like across all associations that you hear, like what are the different ways they do it? Who is evaluating? Is it coaches? Is it parents? Is it the varsity coach? Like all that stuff. Like what are the different things you hear on how that happens?
I think common back and forth is 2-day versus 1 day. So the amount of time that you're evaluating, are you outsourcing your evaluators? So are you hiring a seemingly independent group of individuals that know nothing about anybody in your community that are coming in to do the evaluations?
And the pluses minus there are people know what the kid's capable of the prior year. They've seen him play versus someone who's literally has no idea. They have no background, right? I mean, that could be a good thing. It could be a bad thing.
Right. Also cost too. I mean, hiring people to come in is a pretty big cost. And we're always trying to keep prices reasonable because of tournaments and scheduling for gym space and stuff. I also think like I'm a varsity coach in a different sport, and I know coaches might know kids, but I don't think any varsity coach is like going to try to do a poor job or move someone up that isn't deserving because it will impact them later on, right? And they want the best in their program too. But then at the same time, I get why evaluators that are that don't know anybody are great, right? But it's hard. I think every association, one of the things we're learning is every association has complaints.
Yep, that's what I was getting.
But I think like they're maybe loud complaints, but there's not a ton of them all the time.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was going to say. I feel like it's not that no one's happy, but it's that there isn't a perfect answer. Because when you communicate and ask questions across associations, trying to look at districts that are similar in size to yours, and then also looking at, in our case, districts that are larger than ours, what you find is everybody runs into challenges. And there's a reason, like if you go to association websites, you'll see in handbooks, a lot of people have in place a 48-hour like no contact rule. Like you can't contact the board after teams have been announced, right? It's a really emotional and emotional. That's what it is. It's an emotional time for I would say players and parents. Sometimes observationally, it might be more parents than players.
Sure.
But yeah, I don't know that there's a perfect answer. I think we try to lean on.
And I don't know we've researched what a lot of associations have done just because we're always trying to do the best we can and get better. That's what I really do love that about our board is we always are trying to figure out like, what can we keep improving on? But I know some associations do like strictly scores. Others do evaluations from previous year's coaches. Others do, I've heard of an association where like after the first day, then the coaches of the team get to come in and the A coach gets to select their team and then the B coach selects their team. So their coaches are actually choosing teams, which maybe is great or not. That's not what we do. But so I think, and even talking to other sports in our community that have evaluations, they're still trying to figure it out. So I don't think there's one perfect system at all. It depends on like your community association, all of the things.
And I think the point there, I think the process is important, but I think big picture, it's to understand that really everybody involved is really here for the best possible outcome for every player that's trying out. And I think sometimes that gets lost, that there's, I'm not sure, I don't want to speculate or say what else it would be, but just kind of energy and conversations that I've been in, whether within our district or talking to other board members or other parents or coaches in other communities. I think that sometimes as humans, we get big emotions and we forget, oh, this is a group of people. It's all volunteer run.
Right.
And everybody really is doing it because they really want the best experience possible for all the players that are involved.
Yeah. And like going back to what we talked about at the kind of beginning was just about, dealing with different things throughout life. Right.
Yeah.
This is microcosm of life where maybe you don't get to the team that you wanted. Maybe you worked all summer and you didn't do it. There's still, an opportunity to improve. There's still, a team aspect. You still have to show up and, get over it to some degree and like move on and try to find the best you can and know that there's another opportunity next year. I saw a video on social media, I think it was like a week ago, about a varsity tournament team, playing in the section tournament. And someone was like, that was an A kid all the way through. Those two were both B kids up until ninth grade. And those two kids played C almost their whole life. And so like this idea of, almost like failure if you don't meet a certain expectation for a youth, basketball player is tough because it's really just like, are you getting better today, than you were yesterday? And that should be what it's about. And, there's gotta be some lines drawn in certain points. So I don't envy those people that make that decision. And, I know it's tough, but, hopefully this helps people kind of process how that works.
Yeah, I hope so too.
All right. Anything else want to share anything that we didn't cover about like associations and what they do and their responsibilities?
No, I mean, I feel like if you put a multitude of associations, next to each other, or a group of adults that were participating, I think you would hear common, what we would call checklists of things that are being done, right? You're running a tournament and there's a checklist associated with the tournament. You're running a tryout and there's a checklist associated with the tryout. But I think sometimes what gets lost, and it's probably a little bit more to what I was just speaking to, is maybe the humanity part of this, to just know there is so much compassion, time, energy, and effort of really kind of an emotional labor that happens on being part of a part of something when you care, right? When you're showing up for youth and you really want it to be a positive experience for kids. I think there's just a lot of texts, emails, like hours that are put in, that it's not just a board meeting for an hour once a month, 12 months out of the year. And I think that
Right.
I think it's important for people to know that. So when you're thinking about whether it's, your own player, or you're just familiar with people that are part of an association, and it doesn't have to be basketball, right? I mean, people have youth that are involved in a variety of things, but people who are doing volunteer roles, I think, really are trying to operate from um, a place of wanting to do the right thing in the best interest of the players and the kids.
And I think
100%.
as someone who, if you're not on the board or as a coach or not on a coach, not a coach, I should say, asking questions is like the best thing, because we sometimes I just assume people know like why a tournament's happening or whatever, right? But asking questions, assuming that your people that are volunteering are trying to do the best they can. I've had some really great conversations about why things happen, and I'm like, oh, I would rather have that happen, and I would assume most people would, rather than waiting till the end and firing off a survey. Like, communication is key. And if we can do something, all of us on the board believe we can do something like throughout the season to make it better. I think we get like some random, so, or,
Might have to cut that part out.
so anyway, I think communication is really important between the board and community.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, well said. I think this is a good reminder that sure, there might be some people out there who have not the greatest intentions. I don't know who they would be, but 99% of people who are on youth athletic association boards are doing it because they want to help and they want to be, you know, stewards of the community. They want to help kids have great opportunities. And so I think that's a great call. And if you have thoughts or opinions, they're always looking for more people to join, right?
Yeah, right?
yes, we are.
Well, coach, yeah.
Sweet. All right. Well, this was fun. Thank you guys for joining. Kristi Hicks, Sara Schwartz.
Thank you.
This was a great, I think, eye-opening experience both for me, because I learned some things, and I hope everyone listening did as well. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Bye. Thanks.
Bye.
All right, so that's the show today. I want to thank my guests, Kristi Hicks and Sara Schwartz from the West Tonka Youth Basketball Association, for bringing some insight into what it takes to run a youth basketball association, and the challenges and the positive things that come out of that. And it's a great experience that many of us have, either having played or as a parent of a youth player playing today in boys and girls basketball throughout the state and the region. So thanks again to them. We'll have more coming up this week. Sunday, we got the big NCAA men's and women's basketball selection show. I'll be breaking down the brackets with my buddy Eric. We're going to try that one live as well. So if you want to join on YouTube, it should be there. Go to my channel, Steve Hartman, or the Splash City Basketball podcast channel on my YouTube page. It should be there. I'll share out that link as well via social. But thank you all for being here. Thanks for listening. Go out and enjoy some basketball this weekend. Plenty of it around. Girls state tournament, boys section championships tonight and tomorrow. and then a lot of college tournament championships on TV, as well as the Wolves continuing their West Coast road trip. So thanks all for listening. This has been the Splash City Basketball Podcast.